who died of AIDS and was cremated last week was remembered by a small group of about 50 people who gathered at Forest Lawn. Among them, William Emerson, a porn film producer who said Holmes was a simple man.
It's been a fame. He was just a real person. I loved him and I'll miss him. And that's all I get to say.
The group did not include Holmes's widow, Laurie, herself a former porn actress. Her absence, apparently, due to comments she'd made about Holmes's death from AIDS. Many in the industry say it isn't true and that Holmes is being exploited.
Sad story. Days ago of AIDS, the funeral drew few of Holmes's co-stars to Forest Lawn, as Doug Bruckner reports.
John Holmes appeared in X-rated films with hundreds of women during his 18-year career in hardcore. Here, in one of his last appearances, he's starring in Rome with Ilona Staller, who's since been elected to the Italian Parliament. But today, Ginger Lynn, who's now out of adult films, was the only former co-star to attend the memorial service. Lynn, now pursuing a mainstream acting career, shunned reporters. Most of the 50 mourners were camera crew members and writers for adult publications. Holmes' death March 12th from an AIDS-related illness threw the LA-based sex film industry into turmoil. A mass AIDS testing of performers was scheduled, but now has reportedly been canceled. A controversy is raging over the question, did Holmes contract AIDS during production of a film? Talking on camera for the first time today, Holmes' longtime manager said no.
John himself didn't feel that he got it in the business. I don't believe he got it in the business. He had a pretty good idea what happened and how. But only he and I will know that. I've never discussed it with anyone else, nor will I. But the allegations, I think, that it's in the business are wrong.
You don't think that performers who have been in films with John Holmes have anything to worry about?
No, I don't.
John Holmes' former manager does not believe the star's death will have much impact on the filming of X-rated movies. About AIDS, he says, there are always people around who believe it won't happen to me. Doug Bruckner, Channel 4 News.
Bigger than Holmes was controversial in death as he had often been in life. Tonight in his top story report, Larry Atterbury looks at the man and the controversy. Larry, take it away.
Well, you know, the adult film industry has grown enormously in the past few years. No one was more successful in that business than John Holmes. At the same time, AIDS has become a national crisis, and many were stunned when Holmes died of that dread disease.
Several dozen of Holmes' closest friends gathered for a memorial service at Forest Lawn today. Among them, his godchildren, Sean, Shannon, and Denise.
The only thing I can say is, aside from all the notoriety and the fame, he was just a real person. I loved him and I'll miss him. And that's all I get to say.
Hi, my name is John Holmes. It's nice to meet you.
They called him the King. Holmes made more than 1,000 X-rated films over a career that spanned 2 decades.
I never get tired of what I do because I'm a sex fan.
At the height of his popularity, he commanded fees of more than $2,000 a day. But he had a dark side as well, a serious cocaine habit, and he was arrested and charged in the drug-related murder of 4 people in Los Angeles. The jury found him innocent, but he spent 111 days in jail when he refused to divulge the name of the actual killer, and he took that secret to his grave. Holmes claimed to have had sex with 14,000 women, and he was voted into the X-rated Hall of Fame.
We've all had our ups and downs in this business. Is that bad?
His life ended in controversy. His death certificate from the Veterans Administration Hospital says the 43-year-old actor died of AIDS. And his wife, Laurie, added, John was diagnosed as having AIDS in 1986, before he traveled to Europe to appear in 2 porn movies there.
Tonight in our studio live, 2 X-rated film stars who knew John Holmes well and worked with him extensively in the industry.
This is William Margold, a producer, director, and actor. In this X-rated movie, he plays the part of a minister who goes to a prostitute. It's a plot line that you may have heard recently in the news. And this is Brittany Morgan, an actress whose talent is obvious, who also knew John Holmes well.
Thank you both for being here tonight. Let's talk a little about the controversy. John Holmes was probably the most famous X-rated movie star. He died of AIDS. Isn't that then a problem for the industry?
No, because I think AIDS was the last thing that killed John Holmes. By the time AIDS got there, he was already dead. John Holmes was an excessive drug addict. He speedballed cocaine and heroin mixtures. He was sexually overt in actions way beyond the X-rated industry. He had numerous liaisons with people of both sexes. Within the X-rated industry, he was very careful about what he did.
But isn't it a problem when just one person has AIDS, for example, and does work in this kind of industry?
No, because the industry polices itself from within.
How do they do that?
Well, I'll allow Brittany to answer that medically.
Well, mostly the girls in the business, they take many precautions as far as the sponges and the chemicals that they use. And if you're basically healthy and you try to keep your immunities up and you stay away from the drugs and that sort of thing.
You know, Brittany, when Rock Hudson died, a lot of his co-stars, women, were very interested in just exactly what was going on. Do you look into what was the history of some of your partners?
Yes, I do. Whenever I'm called to do a movie, I want to know exactly who I'm working with. I check up on them. If I don't feel comfortable with them or their background, or I'm not extremely sure who they are, I won't work with them.
Have they been tested? Do you ask for testing?
I ask for tests and I ask for papers.
Do you get tested?
Yes, very often, at least twice.
Do you think that most people in the industry on a regular basis do that?
Now more so than ever. A lot of girls in the business are definitely requesting it, and it's becoming a very easy thing to request because people are concerned.
Bill, are the men involved with testing as well?
I don't think the men are as involved as greatly as the women are, because the men are not going to acquiesce to the fear that runs rampant throughout the entire United States.
Are you saying that we shouldn't have men tested? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying they can be tested on their own choice if they want to be tested. I myself have no intention of being tested.
Why not?
Because I don't believe in the infallibility of doctors. I have been tested for various diseases and told I had them, and then all of a sudden I didn't have them anymore.
But how would you know, for example, if you were called upon to do a sex scene with somebody, whether or not you might be infecting them?
Well, because first of all, the scenes are called hardcore, which means penetration, but the ejaculation is external, which alleviates most of the chance of getting the AIDS.
Are you saying
Secondarily, the women, as she said, are treated with such germicides that it's tantamount to inserting yourself into a sanitized latrine, let's put it that way, to be chemically accurate.
Well, are you really saying that performing sex acts in X-rated films is a healthy thing to do?
It's a lot healthier than picking up a prostitute and taking her home.
It's very clinical and very chemical.
Now, what about the business of condoms? Lots of people are saying we ought to use condoms in so-called safe sex.
Yes, but then we wouldn't have lots of audiences running to see us because, as I've always said, people don't want to see us in condoms anymore. They want to see the Raiders playing touch football.
Do the Raiders play touch football?
Well, maybe inside the locker room,
but
not
didn't you try that? Wasn't that tried in some way, briefly, in the industry?
Well, the only one that really went overboard were the Mitchell brothers, who did a safe sex movie, which was a joke and a disaster. The second Green Door movie.
Do you think, though, that, Brittany, even the X-rated films have some responsibility to show some sort of safe sex to people in order to try to do something about this scourge of AIDS?
Surprisingly enough, there are quite a few movies out there that do incorporate the condom use and erotic uses and ways to use them and that sort of thing. They're very apparent in most of the movies, surprisingly enough.
Now, you were telling about all the changes that have happened in the business, how it's different than it was perhaps 3 or 4 years ago, how it was different than some of the stars that we heard about before, Deep Throat, that kind of thing. And an organization called Pink Ladies, what do they do?
The Pink Ladies is an organization of the women in this business to provide a forum for one another to discuss finances, legal problems, medical problems. We kind of watch out for each other. We kind of throw ideas back and forth and basically that sort of thing.
You're trying to tell me this is just like any other business? I mean, it's just like any other thing going to the office?
It is a business. We make money, we pay taxes, we provide a service. I mean, people are out there spending money on us. It's a multi-billion-dollar-a-year business.
We satisfy a need. America has a dirty mind when it comes to sex. We get them off very safely.
It has changed a lot, though. It's a billion-dollar business. It was that before AIDS arrived. It was that before, I guess, even the new kinds of video arrived.
Well, the video has made it even a more common business in the sense that anybody can now go out and get a tape. In the old days, you had to sneak into a theater. Not many people sneak into Tower Records and pick up an adult video along with the latest Prince video.
Do you think that there should be some changes in what you do, in how you do it, in what you present?
Well, I'd love to have it more qualitative rather than quantitative, but unfortunately the budgets preclude that.
So at this point, you're satisfied with what's going on and you feel that it's safe?
Yes.
Thank you both for being here tonight. Very interesting.
Thank you.
The controversy you know over John Holmes probably will continue despite all of that, but two things I know that we do know. He brought a major contribution to the X-rated film business, that's for sure. And on the subject of AIDS, safety should be everyone's personal concern. That's our top story for tonight.
Thank you, Larry. Well, just ahead on our news, a major U.S.
Holmes's death from AIDS. Many in the industry say it isn't true and that Holmes is being exploited.
Sad story. Days ago of AIDS. The funeral drew few of Holmes's co-stars to Forest Lawn, as Doug Bruckner reports.
Who's since been elected to the Italian Parliament. But today, Ginger Lynn, who's now out of adult films, was the only former co-star to attend the memorial service. Lynn, now pursuing a mainstream acting career.
Just a real person. I loved him and I'll miss him. And that's all I got to say.
The group did not include Holmes's widow, Laurie, herself a former porn actress. Her absence, apparently, due to comments she'd made about work.
John Holmes appeared in X-rated films with hundreds of women during his 18-year career in hardcore. Here, in one of his last appearances, he's starring in Rome with Ilona Staller.
Who died of AIDS and was cremated last week, was remembered by a small group of about 50 people who gathered at Forest Lawn. Among them, William Emerson, a porn film producer who said Holmes was a simple man.
And it's been a fame he was